Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to the Red Bull Ring in Austria for the 10th race of the 2016 International GTOpen. We are in for a real treat over the next 60 minutes because the championship is coming to the boil nicely. We had a brilliant race yesterday and qualifying this morning was extremely close. Well, it's a very warm welcome to Austria from Ben Evans here in the commentary box overlooking the paddock at the Red Bull Ring as the pit lane has closed. The cars are on the grid ready for this 60-minute race. And after yesterday's triumph for Miguel Ramos and Peter Schotthorst in the BMW Motorsport Team Theo Martin entry, they line up in pole position today. It was a fantastic performance from Miguel Ramos in qualifying to take pole, albeit by the slenderest of margins. Just 24 thousandths of a second was Ramos's pole time, and Miguel in brilliant mood this weekend, really enjoying his racing this season and really enjoying the performance of the BMW. Alongside him on the front row then is his teammate, that is Fernando Mounier, as Fernando almost got pole, and he and Gustavo Jacquemin finishing fourth yesterday, looking for a podium that's going to get their title fight back underway. On the third row of the grid is Adam Carroll alongside Sean Balfe in the Balfe Motorsport McLaren this weekend, and Adam missing out on pole by 76 thousandths of a second, so unbelievably close qualifying earlier on. Ewan Hankey starts in fourth in the TF Sport Aston Martin. Ewan and Sally Yuluk finishing in sixth place yesterday, but still in with a shout of claiming the title. Alvaro Prent is a new co-driver alongside Alex West this weekend in the second of the Garage 59 McLarens. Prent, of course, the reigning champion in the McLaren last year alongside Miguel Ramos. Alvaro within 4/10 of pole position. Here is the championship leading Orange 1 Team Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan of Fabrizio Crestani and Thomas Biaggi, and it is Crestani who will start. But they had a disappointing day yesterday. It means that Ramos is now just 8 points back in the championship, and Sean Balfe is there or thereabouts as well. Runner-up yesterday was the Leckner Racing Mercedes, Mario Placiuta and Thomas Jaeger, and it is Jaeger who will start this afternoon's race. It was a really fine performance from them yesterday. Looking to get onto the podium is second in the Garage 59 McLarens. That is Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy. Mike Benham unfortunate to retire from a potential podium position yesterday. Fortunately, the issue has been rectified overnight, so he lines up 8th on the grid, just clear of Manuel da Costa and Miguel Sardina in the GT Am class winning Sport & U Mercedes. So the grid being cleared now, as we'll take a look at the principal GT-Am rivals to Da Costa and Sardini. That is Francisco Guedes and Felipe Barrios in the V8 Racing Renault RS01, a car that has won a race this year in the hands of Nicky Pastorelli and Josh Webster at Spa. Here is how they line up in full then. That all Team Theo Martin BMW front row. Then we have got Adam Carroll and Ewan Hankey, a very competitive second row. Same goes to row 3, Alvaro Prent and Fabrizio Crestani. You can't ask for much more in terms of strength in depth. Thomas Jaeger and Mike Benham on the fourth row from then Manuel da Costa and Francisco Guedes. Manuel Busnelli lines up in 11th, clear of Fu Songyang, but watch for those two cars late on, because Fabio Bini, when he takes over from Busnelli, will fly, as will Andrea Caldarelli, who put the SF Racing Ferrari on pole position yesterday. So there is a smile from Peter Schotthorst, who will take over mid-race from Miguel Ramos, and it is the reigning champion who leads the cars away on the formation lap. Of course, there is the mandatory pit stop that we've got to look forward to. That is between 24 and 36 minutes of the race distance, and the way that the performance is balanced out is through those success seconds in the pits. So Miguel Ramos, by winning yesterday, has got an additional 15 seconds in the pits. Thomas Jaeger has got 10 seconds and Adam Carroll has got 5 seconds. So we should be in for an extraordinarily close race based on the performance that we've really seen throughout the course of the weekend. The heat haze shimmering off the cars. It's an absolutely beautiful September afternoon here at the Red Bull Ring, as Theo Martin, the principal of his eponymous team, watches on as his squadron of BMWs locked out the front row in qualifying. Heading through the very tight Remus turn, the second corner on the circuit, before the long run downhill down the back straight towards Rauch. They're all trying to get a little bit of heat into the control compound Michelin tyre that we run on in the International GTOpen. And it's a tyre that has given us some great racing so far this season. We have not had a single dull race in the International GTOpen so far in 2016. And the expectation is that today is going to be very close as well. Certainly, speaking to the drivers this morning, they were all struggling to pick a winner, because once you balance out the relative performance merits of each of the many marks represented on the grid, plus the way that driver performance balances out through the race, then it is going to be very tight. That is the Balfe Motorsport McLaren of Adam Carroll and Sean Balfe. It's been a pretty big week for Adam Carroll. He was announced earlier in the week as Jaguar's official FIA Formula E Championship driver. He's been pounding around Donington Park in testing for them, then came straight out to the RedBull ring. Thumbs up from Gustavo Jackerman. He takes over from Fernando Monje in the second of the BMWs. That's the one with the blue bonnet, whereas Ramos and Peter Schotthorst is the red Vodafone bonnet. And now the field forming up side by side, getting ready for the start here at the RedBull ring. Thank you very much for joining us in Austria this afternoon. We've got 60 minutes of action for the International GTOpen to look forward to, as Ramos and Monje pace the field through the final turn, looking to the lights on the gantry, waiting for them to flash out, and they'll be racing once more, and away we go. And Ramos anticipates the start absolutely beautifully. Ewan Hankey is also well away, trying to squeeze to the middle of Monje and Alvaro Prent. All is very tight as they file through turn one. Running wide is Fabrizio Crestani. Ewan Hankey gets squeezed out, as Crestani looks to now challenge the Aston Martin as they climb uphill. Headlights ablaze for Ewan Hankey. Mike Benham also looking to push, but it's Ramos who's got the advantage from Adam Carroll into second. Third place for Fernando Monje. In fourth place it is Alvaro Prent. Fifth, an aggressive and pugnacious Fabrizio Crestani. Sixth is Ewan Hankey. Seventh, Thomas Jaeger, and then Mike Benham just in behind. Sprint down the back straight. Snick down through the gears into Rauch, and already Alvaro Prent looking to see if he can elevate himself past the second of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMWs. But the way that the performance balances out around the circuit is that, talking to the drivers, they were saying the BMW particularly strong on the straights, to be expected, but also slightly unexpectedly very strong through this brace of left-handers at Pirelli and Worth, and that's where certainly the McLaren squads have been focusing their setup energies overnight. So down into Rindt and then RedBull Mobile to bring the lap to them. Meanwhile, Francisco Guedes looking to challenge Michael Benham. Benham has got the very, very rapid Duncan Tappy waiting in the rings to take over mid-race, so he doesn't want to get too embroiled with the Renault, as Ramos leads cross line, almost a second clear at the end of lap one from Adam Carroll, whose mirrors are being filled by Fernando Monje. Then we have got Alvaro Prent, Fabrizio Crestani, Ewan Hankey, as Francisco Guedes moves clear of Mike Benham. Benham now gets back into line ahead of Manuel da Costa, and in fact it's possible the McLaren might be able to squirt clear of the Renault on the run uphill. Meanwhile, Ewan Hankey gets into the groove, looks to challenge Fabrizio Crestani. Francisco Guedes busy defending from Benham, and Benham will know that he can see that leading train of cars breaking clear. He wants to try and clear the Renault if he possibly can and get back onto terms with Thomas Jaeger in seventh. Alvaro Prent once more turning up the heat. Monje responds by turning his headlights on, trying to distract Adam Carroll. Suspect that that is going to be a fairly forlorn hope. In turn, Adam just trying to stick with Miguel Ramos. Then we've got Ewan Hankey behind Fabrizio Crestani, the championship leader. Crestani and Biaggi, they've held the championship lead for several events now, having taken it away from the early season championship leader, Sean Balfe. And Balfe, third in the standings now, but a good result today and a bad result for Crestani, and that would put him back to the top of the championship. The same goes for Miguel Ramos, and it's Ramos who ekes out a little bit more of an advantage over Adam Carroll through the course of lap 2. Climbs out of turn 1. It's Thomas Jaeger in the Lechner Racing Mercedes, just staying there in 7th, staying in touch, seeing how the race unfolds, maybe not wanting to put too much pressure on his tyres in the early stages. So Adam Carroll not letting Miguel Ramos break away as Crestani runs a little bit wide through turn 2. He's got Ewan Hankey tucked up right behind him, as Monje looks to see if he can pressurise Adam Carroll. But Carroll sticks to the racing line. He's not going to make this easy for the BMW. He's certainly not going to leave a chink of daylight there. Peter Schotthorst, he can see Miguel Ramos out front and trying to break clear. We haven't had a double winner in the International GTOpen yet this season. The success seconds generally, given the very, very close balance of the field, making it very difficult for anybody to overcome even a 5-second additional time in the pit stop. Down through Rindt and into the final turn. Ewan Hankey, headlights ablaze, trying to chase Fabrizio Crestani. Crestani can see Alvaro Prent easing clear, and Prent actually dropping back slightly from Monje. Monje still pressurising Adam Carroll. And Carroll a little bit close to Miguel Ramos last time through as well. So the leading trio will begin to bunch up on each other, because what we have seen a couple of times this year is if the BMW goes out a little bit too hot, then the Michelin tyre gets a little bit more wear compared to maybe some of the other cars, and that might give the McLaren of Adam Carroll the chance to come back at it, particularly as Carroll seems to have got the Michelin tyres doing exactly what he wants to and is now chasing Ramos. Ewan Hankey still bottled up behind Fabrizio Crestani, and this is always tricky in the early stage of the race. We're 20 minutes away from the pit window opening, more or less 18 minutes away from the pit window opening, so Hankey and others have got to do it on the track, but at the same time they don't want to risk everything, risk a bump, risk some contact and some damage. So they've got to bide their time, see if an opening becomes apparent. Now this has been a good lap from Miguel Ramos, certainly through this second sector. He seems to have opened up a little bit of ground over Adam Carroll. Indeed, Ramos has set the fastest middle sector of anybody in the race so far, so as he flashes through, he re-extends the advantage out to over 1 second again. Carroll's still got Monje in very, very close company behind him. Just 2/10 adrift at the line, but Adam is not giving any sort of opening for the BMW Fernando Monje to try and challenge him. I think what's interesting though is that Alvaro Prent just can't quite get onto terms with the two cars in front. And if anything, is beginning to be caught a little bit by Fabrizio Crestani. Crestani being given the hurry up by Ewan Hankey behind him. And Sally Yuluk, who will take over from Ewan Hankey in the Aston Martin. Down through Rauk, Thomas Jaeger completing that leading 7. Then we've got Francisco Guedes. He is the GTAM class leader. Mike Benham is in 9th from Manuel da Costa. And then Busnelli and Fu Song Yang just being dropped a little bit by the rest of the field. But Ewan Hankey having had a few laps in the turbulent air behind Fabrizio Crestani, now just dropping back a little bit. And we've seen a couple of times this weekend that it's really tricky to run more than 0.8 of a second, or within 0.8 of a second of the car in front, without starting to experience a fair amount of wash and wake. That's why possibly you're seeing Thomas Jaeger just seeing how things unfold. It also makes the performance of Fernando Monje to be right up behind Adam Carroll so impressive. Again, the McLaren and the BMW tip through turn 1 in formation. Alvaro Prent elevating his pace a little bit to ease away from Fabrizio Crestani. Now here is the battle for 9th and 10th between Mike Benham and Manuel da Costa, with then Manuele Busnelli not too far back either. And both Busnelli and Benham have got rapid second drivers who will take over from them probably at the very opening of the pit window. The key here for Mike Benham is to not give Duncan Tappy too much of a deficit to the race leaders to work with, and currently Benham is just 13 seconds back from Miguel Ramos. But don't forget that Ramos has got an additional 15 seconds in the pits. Adam Carroll has got an additional 5 seconds in the pits, so that starts to become advantage for Fernando Monnier and Gustavo Jackermann. Benham, who was on course for a podium yesterday, was being caught by some of his rivals, but was still going very well post pit stop before he had an issue with the front left of the McLaren that saw him having to pull off the road and into retirement. So looking for a little bit better today. There is Alex West, who will take over from Alvaro Parent through the mid-race pit stops, and Parent, of course, in 4th place in the other of the Garage 59 McLarens. Benham picks up the throttle. He's got Manuel da Costa behind him in the sporting new Mercedes. Duncan Tappy just keeping an eye on the monitor and the timing screen as a warning flag going out to Alvaro Parent for track limits. I don't think that Manuel da Costa is going to be quite close enough to challenge Benham on this occasion as they run on uphill. Indeed, he's not. Benham headlights ablaze, lapping in the 1 minute 30 second bracket, 1 minute 30.9. That compares to sort of a 1 minute 29.5 from the race leader, Miguel Ramos. So Benham giving away about 1.4 seconds a lap at the moment. As we hit the 10-minute mark in the race, still an awful lot of racing to go. Now here is the battle for 4th, because Alvaro Parent is being reeled in by Fabrizio Crestani, and Crestani has been at one really with the Lamborghini Huracan throughout the course of the year, and he and Thomas Biaggi, a very well balanced driver pairing. It's catapulted them to the lead of the championship, and now Crestani starting to turn up the heat a little bit on Alvaro Parent. At the same time, Parent, last around, gained a lot of ground on Fernando Monnier, who has dropped back from Adam Carroll. And so the dynamic of this battle at the front of the field beginning to change once more. There you see it. Carroll still within a second or so of Ramos, but then some daylight back to the 3rd place car of Monnier, and then Fabrizio Crestani and Ewan Hankey trying to chase down Alvaro Parent, with Thomas Jaeger staying in close contention as well. The Lechner Racing Mercedes, the team overjoyed with their 2nd place finish yesterday. Of course, for Fabrizio Crestani, it's quite one thing to catch Alvaro Parent and try as he might with flashing his headlights. I don't think that Alvaro is going to make it at all easy here for Crestani. But if they start battling and slow themselves down, that potentially is very, very good news for the 3 cars in front of them. And so much as Alvaro Parent will obviously want to maintain his position, he won't necessarily want to do so at the cost of a significant amount of time that will make the task difficult for Alexander West in the second half of the race. But Crestani now well within the second for Alvaro Parent. It was half a second when they crossed the line. It's about that mid-lap as well. Ewan Hankey, a second or so back, and then Thomas Jaeger still with this group as they dart down through Rindt on to the conclusion of the 8th lap of the race. And this leading bunch still only covered by 7 seconds for the top 7 cars. Nobody really able to open up any daylight. Ramos again about a 1/10 of a second quicker than Adam Carroll. Carroll now has a second's advantage over Fernando Monnier, with Alvaro Parent and Fabrizio Crestani closer still. And Crestani now 4/10 second back. Is he within striking distance? Where is he going to try and pull the pin and pick his way past Alvaro Parent? But Parent, alongside being the reigning International GTOpen champion, top McLaren GT racer, former Renault 3.5 champion, former British Formula 3 champion, Fu Song Yang, has a little bit of a moment over at Rindt. And he, of course, has got Andrea Caldarelli in the SF Racing Ferrari, who might not be able to chase down the 34 seconds or so that it currently looks like he's going to need to, but could well bring that car into contention, particularly if we have a safety car or something that just makes things slightly interesting. So Fabrizio Cristani, having made the step on from the Italian GT Championship up to international competition this season. Very experienced co-driver in the form of Thomas Biaggi, a former World GT champion. And he and Biaggi have just had the consistency throughout the course of the season. I think they've only won the one race, but they have, probably with the exception of yesterday, always been able to pull out a result that's a little bit beyond expectation. Again, Miguel Ramos just setting the fastest lap of the race. And every time he elevates the pace, trying to stretch away from Adam Carroll, Carroll has got a response, and Carroll brings Fernando Monje with him for company. And again, with an eye towards the pit stops, Adam Carroll wants to try and build as much of that 5 seconds as possible over the rest of the field. Well, everybody taking their turn to run wide up at Rauch, and that means that we have got to try and push through that turbulent air from the car in front. It means that Ewan Hankey doesn't lose any ground in the TF Sport Aston Martin. So we've now got these two groups of three at the front of the field. We're at 1/4 race distance, and Miguel Ramos leads from Adam Carroll and Fernando Monje. On to the 11th lap, Adam Carroll coming back at Miguel Ramos last time around. Meanwhile, in the battle between Mike Benham and Manuel da Costa, it is as we were, Benham from da Costa. They've now slipped some 5 seconds back from Francisco Guedes, and this battle is now 20 seconds away from the race leaders. The Sport and U team get on the radio to Manuel da Costa, possibly just to let him know that there's 8 minutes until the pit window opens. Possibly also just giving him the time gap as well to Francisco Guedes, the main rival in the GTAM class. It's down through Rauch. Meanwhile, back to the leading gaggle of cars, and it's again been a very good lap this for Adam Carroll relative to Miguel Ramos. Last time round, Adam took 0.4 of a second out of Miguel Ramos, and it would seem as if he's taken a not dissimilar margin again this time around. We're going to find out as Ramos completes the 11th lap of the race. The gap was 1.1 seconds at the start of the lap. As the lap ends, it's down to 0.7 of a second, with Fernando Monje a further 0.7 back, so 1.4 seconds to cover the leading trio, and it is the McLaren and the BMW sandwich. And is this a case of Ramos possibly having had the better of his tyres and now falling into the clutches of Adam Carroll? Certainly Carroll benefiting a little bit from the tow up the hill. He's 0.2 quicker than Ramos through sector 1. It's going to be sector 2, where we've seen the BMW looking very strong earlier on in the race. And certainly Ramos buys himself maybe a 10th. And then seems to turn in quite early for Rauch relative to the McLaren. Whether or not that's going to reward Adam Carroll in terms of ground gained at the end of the sector, we will find out momentarily. They swing downhill through Pirelli and then on towards Worth. Two left-handers here at the RedBull ring. Fernando Monje still there or thereabouts, and the 0.2 of a second that Ramos conceded through sector 1, he regains through sector 2. But this leading trio of cars, it's only 1.4 seconds between them at the start of the lap. It looks as if it might be a little bit less than that at the end of it, but it's been a good lap from Miguel Ramos. As across the line, leading trio, 1.5 seconds it is that covers the leaders. Ramos fractionally quicker than Adam Carroll. Of course, the pit stop strategy here is going to be absolutely key, because Ramos will want to pass over to Peter Schotthorst more or less at mid-race, but he also doesn't necessarily want to take the risk of giving Adam Carroll a free rein in a little bit of clear air. Fernando Monje, he has got the very, very rapid Gustavo Jackermann, who will take over the car for the second half of the race. They are looking for their first victory of the International GTOpen season. So that is something they're going to be aspiring to. Very disappointed not to finish on the podium yesterday And Jakob, the race is just going away from them late on. Meanwhile, Alvaro Prent and Fabrizio Cristani still much as they were. It's Carroll continuing to try and chase down Ramos, and as Prent and Cristani do battle, they've now slipped clear of Ewan Hankey. Hankey's team manager has been summoned to race control, which possibly indicates a track limits violation that is going to invoke some sort of sanction. Which would be very disappointing for the TF Sport team. So yeah, for Monnier and Jakob, they've had 3 second places this year, but they're yet to get the race win. And the gap back to Alvaro Prent is only a couple of seconds, so this race is wide open as we head into the latter stages when tyre wear starts to become a factor. Pace of second drivers starts to become a factor as well, because what we've had this weekend is an extremely well-balanced field. The slenderest of margins between them, and it shows, because we're only 4 minutes away from the pit window opening. We're at third race distance, and the leading 7 cars separated by just shy of 9 seconds. Fascinating to see the different balance of the cars. The BMW very much hooked up to the asphalt. Adam Carroll in the McLaren dancing over it a little bit more. Ramos has just set another fastest lap of the race as the fuel load lightens. Feels able to ask a little bit more of the BMW. Prent and Cristani, their fight for 4th and 5th. They've been within a second of each other really ever since the start of the race, but Fabrizio Cristani has been hovering on the tail of Alvaro Prent, but he's not been able to open up the opportunity to really challenge, to really craft that opening where he feels he can push his way through. So instead, he follows station. There is Andrea Caldarelli on the Ferrari pit wall, waiting to take over from Fusong Yang. Expect that will be one of the first pit stops we see when the pit window opens, which is going to be in just over 2.5 minutes' time. Well, we'd expect to see Alvaro Prent staying out fairly deep into the pit window, which will shut when there's 24 minutes left on the race clock, so another 14 minutes' time. Cristani, another driver who might go a little bit deeper. The same for Ewan Hankey, whereas Miguel Ramos and Fernando Monje we might see into the pit lane fairly early to hand over to Peter Schotthorst and Gustavo Jackman. The risk of that being, of course, that it gives Adam Carroll the chance to enjoy some clear air and really press on at the wheel of the McLaren. This is the second race for the Balfour Motorsport McLaren. It was unveiled at Silverstone, having not had a huge programme of testing before it went racing at Silverstone. And the team learning a little bit as they went through the weekend, but it's been bang on performance this weekend, a match to the Garage 59 McLarens in terms of outright pace. And the car very well sorted as Carroll navigates the final turn. This completes the 15th lap of the race. The leading trio dart across the line. The gap back to Alvaro Prent in 4th is only 3 seconds from Fernando Monje, with, of course, Fabrizio Cristani well within the second of that. Then Ewan Hankey and Thomas Jaeger about a second and a half apiece further adrift. So actually the spread between the leading group of cars has closed a little bit, 8.5 seconds. As Sean Balfe trying to remain impassive as he follows the progress of Adam Carroll. But the fact that Sean isn't suited and booted, I think gives us a fairly good clue that Adam is going to remain on track, certainly until half race distance and not a little bit beyond it. Now Adam Carroll starting to ask some questions of Miguel Ramos. He's a little bit closer to Miguel once more. It was 8/10 at the end of the lap. It looks to be a lot less than that mid-lap as Adam set his personal best lap of the race last time round. It was just a 1/10 of a second away from the fastest lap of the race so far. And the McLaren turning up the pressure on the BMW. It means that Fernando Monje just beginning to get dropped a little bit as well. Meanwhile, Thomas Jaeger's picked up the pace. He's just an absolutely fantastic second sector. And so the race is beginning to start to come together as we thought it would. The gaps haven't opened at all during this first phase of the race. Here is Francisco Guedes, the leader in the GTOpen class, and 8th place overall, as the pit window is now open. So the pit window open, this is when the strategic dimension starts to come into play. And so far, we haven't really seen anybody quite playing their full hand. There's been lots of pushing, trying to build some gaps, but we haven't seen the sort of attempted overtaking manoeuvres that we would expect to see later on in the race. So the Renault Sport Trophy car RSO1 continues on its way now. The track position for Mike Benham's worked out very well here. He rolls down the pit lane, and that is going to be Duncan Tappy to take over in the Garage 59 McLaren, which comes to a stop. Looks like a brand new set of Michelin tires as well for Duncan Tappy as Benham hops out. Tappy gets in, will be strapped in to the McLaren. And what can Duncan Tappy do with some 35 minutes or so to play with? Here Mike Benham finished 3rd in the second race at Silverstone. That was their 3rd podium of the season, on the top of a 2nd place in Spa and a win in Estoril. Also in is Fusong Yang, and that will be for Andrea Caldarelli to charge to the finish. Caldarelli, pole position yesterday, star in the races at Paul Ricard earlier in the year. Again, he is going to get a new set of Michelin tyres to have a little bit of fun with. Now, emerging from the pit lane there is Duncan Tappy. I don't think he's going to be involved in this lead battle. I think he'll probably come out just behind them, but possibly ahead of Alvaro Parent and Fabrizio Crestani, as again Adam Carroll gets to within 7/10 of a second of Miguel Ramos. Ramos is just going to have to start thinking about driving with his mirrors a little bit, because here comes Adam Carroll. Closes up onto Ramos as they reach the top of the hill. There is Duncan Tappy, who has emerged ahead of Alvaro Parent and Fabrizio Crestani, but this is as close as Carroll has been, and now Adam Carroll's got a good opportunity to challenge Miguel Ramos for the lead of the race. Head downhill towards Rauch. Ramos just tries to cover the line. Adam Carroll decides not to force it. Looks to see what Miguel Ramos is going to do. Maybe see if he can force him to just run out of road on the extra Rauch. That doesn't happen. Meanwhile, in is Emanuele Busnelli. That's Fabio Babini, who'll take over the Ebby Motors Lamborghini. As Carroll now gets right onto terms with Ramos. The 7/10 of a second at the start lap has whittled down to considerably less than that, and Carroll might even challenge here in Turin. He draws alongside Miguel Ramos, and he's going to go around the outside of the BMW, but Ramos is well within that white line and is heading to the Teo Martin Motorsport pit box to pass over to Peter Schotthorst. So now Carroll leads the way. He's got clear track. He has got 9 minutes before he must make his pit stop. Let's see what he can do. While Peter Schotthorst is poised and ready. Now this is going to be the longest pit stop of the race, theoretically, for Ramos and Schotthorst, because they got those 15 success seconds from their victory yesterday. And given how closely bunched the field is going to be, and has been, that is going to be really quite tricky for Peter Schotthorst to try and race around. Meanwhile, Duncan Tappy, immediately up to speed, running at the same sort of pace as Alvaro Parent, which is sort of 1 minute 29.7 territory. Adam Carroll, that last lap for him as he was right on terms with Miguel Ramos, was 1 minute 30.1. Don't forget, Carroll's going to have an additional 5 seconds in the pits before handing over to Sean Balfe, so he needs to try and break the will and resistance of Fernando Moyet. Moyet only 8/10 adrift at the moment. So if things stay as they are and all the pit stops proceed smoothly, that should feed Gustavo Jackerman out in the lead of the race. And that is contingent on a lot of should and a lot of ifs. So what sort of pace can Duncan Tappy do on his first flying lap? We've got more track limits warnings for Manuel da Costa. Anybody into the pit lane on this occasion? No. Ewan Hankey and Thomas Jaeger. Course, looking to remain on track fairly late into the stint. And that lap from Adam Carroll, 1 minute 29.6. Interestingly though, Fernando Moyet a little bit quicker. Duncan Tappy, 1 minute 29.7 on his first flying lap. Ewan Hankey definitely being caught here by Thomas Jaeger in what's now become the fight for 5th and 6th position. Parent just runs a little bit wide. Crestani continues to apply the pressure. Same for Thomas Jaeger now and Ewan Hankey. So they're beginning to pair off. The fights for 2nd, the fights for 3rd and 4th, and 5th and 6th. And Crestani gets very, very close to the tail of the McLaren at turn 3. Now, is Crestani going to be able to play that into some sort of advantage through the left-handers? Thomas Biaggi just signalling to the team, possibly suggesting that Crestani is going to be losing time here now behind Alvaro Prent, and it's worthwhile getting the driver change done, trying to feed Thomas out into a little bit of clear air, and maybe jump the McLaren that way. Meanwhile, into the pit lane is going Fernando Monje, so he will pass over to Gustavo Jackerman as the Parent and Crestani battle continues. I can tell you that Peter Schotthorst has emerged from the pits some 10 seconds clear of Duncan Tappy, so that's going to be interesting. As Colombian Gustavo Jackerman opens the door, and Monje jumps out. Jackerman is in. Again, a very slick pit stop from the Teo Martin Motorsport team. Adam Carroll, his last lap of 1 minute 29.4. We've now got the 3 McLarens almost flying in formation. Prent and Crestani still battling now for 2nd and 3rd. Race leader Adam Carroll, essentially racing cars that he can't see. Duncan Tappy, meanwhile, absolutely flying. He's just on a 1 minute 29.3. We're going to find out at the end of this lap what the pace of Peter Schotthorst is and how that compares to Duncan Tappy. Thomas Jaeger and Ewan Hankey continuing to push. Of course, Thomas Jaeger, he's got an extra 10 seconds in the pits when he hands over to Mario Pasciuta on the basis of that runners-up finish yesterday. We've got Francisco Guedes, team manager, who's been summoned to race control, according to the timing screen, as this on-track battle now for 4th and 5th between Ewan Hankey and Thomas Jaeger comes the end of the 21st lap of the race. Peter Schotthorst, his first flying lap of his stint, a 1 minute 29.0. So that's looking very, very good for Schotthorst in the number 1 BMW. Is into the pit lane now, comes Fabrizio Crestani to pass over to Thomas Biaggi. Lamborghini rolls to a halt, out gets Crestani, in jumps Biaggi. What can the championship leaders do? Really, they need to finish ahead of Sean Balfe, they need to finish ahead of the Peter Schotthorst and Miguel Ramos car. Gives Alvaro Prent the chance to enjoy a little bit of clear air as a very quick lap just been posted from Adam Carroll, a 1 minute 29.1. So he is trying to push, but the fast lap of the race has just been set by Andrea Caldarelli, as we thought he might do. He is flying in the Ferrari. He's just on the 1 minute 28.2, Andrea Caldarelli, a second quicker than anybody else. He's got a fair amount of time to make up, but Caldarelli could pull off quite a remarkable result in the SF Racing Ferrari if he can maintain that sort of pace. So just over half race distance. Here is Thomas Biaggi, who emerges from the pits, and he is nice and close to Gustavo Jackerman. So this is far from settled in favour of Gustavo Jackerman, because he's got Thomas Biaggi, the championship leader, trying to chase him down. So great work again from the Orange 1 Team Lazarus squad. Also in is Adam Carroll, as is Alvaro Prent and Ewan Hankey. So the pits are suddenly abuzz. Prent will pass over to Alex West. Ewan Hankey to Sally Yuluk. And Adam Carroll to Sean Balfe. Carroll walks clear. Balfe gets strapped in. And they are essentially racing these cars, which are swooping downhill now through the double left-handers of Gustavo Jackerman and Thomas Biaggi. So we're going to find out the true race order in a moment's time, as Jackerman will accelerate out of turn 1. We'll see where he is relative to some of the cars we're waiting to emerge from the pits. Gustavo Jackermann chasing his first International GTOpen victory, pushing very hard in the BMW as well he might, because here we go then, Alex West, Sean Balfe and Sally Ulett, they're all going to emerge behind Gustavo Jackermann. They may well emerge behind Fabrizio Crestani as well. So it is Jackermann of those who have, or rather Thomas Biaggi, it's Jackermann of those who've pitted who leads. Then it's West who emerges clear of Thomas Biaggi. So this is a fight for position between Thomas Biaggi and Alex West. Then it's Sean Balfe and Sally Ulett, and Thomas Biaggi trying to waste no time at all to put the pressure onto Alex West. But West, he just left the door slightly open through turn 2, and Biaggi should be able to squeeze through here. It's the last thing you want to do as you come out to start your stint, be thrown straight into a scrap. Meanwhile, Thomas Jaeger hands over to Mario Pasciuta as Biaggi seals the deal. He makes the move on Alex West, gains the place. I think that's effectively going to be second place for Thomas Biaggi. And again, with a view towards the championship, could be a significant result this for Biaggi and Crestani. Meanwhile, into the pit lane comes the Renault. Francisco Guedes pass over to Philippe Barrierov. They were leading the GTAM class reasonably comfortably prior to the pit cycle. So it's going to be at the end of this lap that we will be able to give you something like the true order of the race, some of the gaps that need chasing down. Now this battle between Sean Balfe and Sally Ulett could be quite a lot of fun, as the Aston Martin of Ulett chasing Sean Balfe, and Ulett kicking up a little bit of dust as well. Sean immediately on the defensive, covers the inside line as they head uphill sharply towards turn 1. And they have got, there you see him, Peter Schotthorst looming on their tail. Whoever comes out on top of this battle is looking pretty good for third place in the race overall, as Miguel Sardinia exits the pit lane in the Sporting New Mercedes. So those that have pitted, Gustavo Jackermann, 6 seconds clear of Thomas Biaggi. Then it's Alex West. Then the battle we're watching between Sean Balfe, Sally Ulett and Peter Schotthorst. They're only a couple of seconds or so back from Alex West. And then just behind them you can see in the background car of Mario Pasciuta. So we're on the 24th lap of the race. We have got just over a third of the race remaining. And are we going to see the BMWs taking both victories here at the Red Bull Ring? Albeit one apiece for the two cars in the BMW team Thio Martin. Sean Balfe having to get his defending hat on from Sally Ulett, and now Peter Schotthorst. Schotthorst trying to get in as many places as he can to aid Miguel Ramos's championship charge. So Gustavo Jackermann, our race leader, into lap 25. His advantage over Thomas Biaggi, 6.8 seconds. Here comes Biaggi, headlights blaze. Alex West is third, and West sticking with him as now Peter Schotthorst applies the pressure to Sally Ulett. Ulett defends. It gives Sean Balfe a little bit of respite, but this is what it's all about, isn't it? McLaren versus Aston Martin versus BMW. All the while, I can tell you that Andrea Caldarelli is circulating 1.5 seconds a lap quicker than everybody else in the field, as Schotthorst looks to the inside of Ulett into turn 2. Remus makes the move stick, so Schotthorst goes up into 5th position. His next target is Balfe, then it's West. Alex West, 3.7 seconds clear of Sean Balfe, but last time around, as Balfe was defending, West was a little bit quicker, so that gap remains consistent. And Alex West, who so nearly won the first race of the year in Estoril, just having one podium to his credit so far this season. That came at Spa-Francorchamps. Will he and Alvaro Prenk get on the rostrum this afternoon, as now Sean Balfe has got the BMW making ominous moves behind him. And Balfe knows he needs to keep this car behind him in terms of the championship battle, because Sean Balfe and Miguel Ramos separated by just 3 points for second and third in the standings coming into today's race. So any points lost here are points that Sean's going to have to find in the remaining 4 races in Monza and the Circuit to Barcelona, Catalunya. Shotthorst looks to the outside of Sean Balfe as they head through turn 1. And now Balfe, well, he saw that Adam Carroll in the first phase of the race could keep a bullying BMW behind him. So Balfe looks to repeat the trick into the cockpit. Full concentration there from the helmet of Sean Balfe. See now, just looks to see the exit of turn 2. Wants to get a nice smooth run out. Manages to do that, but Peter Shotthorst is still there behind him. All the while, Alex West and Thomas Biaggi up the road ahead of them. And again, Balfe edges out Shotthorst. But another 20 minutes of racing. This is going to be a big ask for Sean Balfe. What he really needs, though, is Sally Yuluk, if he can, to rejoin the party, try and reapply some of the pressures back to the BMW, fill Shotthorst's mirrors, and make life a little bit difficult again for the Dutchman. Remember last year, Sean having an absolutely brilliant scrap with Alvaro Parente, I think it was at Silverstone, and he certainly is very experienced international sports car racing, Sean Balfe. He's had great success in 24-hour races, great success in the Spanish GT Championship years gone by, and yes, he's managed to back Shotthorst into Sally Yuluk, and Yuluk now behind Peter Shotthorst. It's Adam Carroll watching the progress of his car from the Balfe Motorsport pit box. As they swing through turn 1, again, Sean Balfe perfectly online. The gap to Alex West in third, though, continues to grow as the pace drops off. So although this fight is a very, very close one, it's not at the moment necessarily for a podium finish, because Alex West is 4 seconds up the road. Thomas Biaggi is a further 3.5 seconds ahead of him, and Biaggi in second place, all the while giving away time to the race leader Gustavo Jackermann. But if Sean can stay where he is, he will be able to take 2 points out of Miguel Ramos in terms of the championship battle. Still keep him in second place. He'd give away some points as well to Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crostani. Still keeps the title fight alive with 88 points left to play with in the remaining 4 races at the end of today. Again, good car positioning from Sean Balfe. He's making this difficult for Peter Shotthorst, as he's perfectly entitled to do. Nothing untoward, just forcing the BMW driver to think a little bit differently, to have to consult his mirrors in case Sally Yuluk fancies having a little bit of a lunge as well. So the 3 of them flash through across the line. Great racing this here in the Red Bull ring. They're covered by 0.6 of a second as they concertina further still through turn 1, bounce over the curbs. The cars porpoising on the suspension. Meanwhile, Andrea Caldarelli finds a way past Fabio Bobini. Caldarelli, we've not seen much of him. He is absolutely flying. He's managed to go a second quicker than anybody else in the field. The other car to be aware of as we're watching this fight is that Duncan Tappy is only 8 seconds back from this scrap, and Duncan is closing on them at a rate of over a second a lap. So Duncan Tappy could be part of this scrap as well before too long. There's certainly enough laps in the left in the race for Duncan to close up onto this battle and fight his way through it. Meanwhile, that last lap for Sean Balfe, as he wasn't defending quite as vigorously from Peter Shotthorst, it means, oh, and now he opens the door, half a door open into Worth, and Shotthorst thought about launching to the inside. Sean shut the door in just the right moment. I was going to say that without having to defend quite as vigorously, he was gaining a little bit on Alex West. There you see West, he's only 3.8 seconds up the road. Sally Yuluk still hovering there in 6th place. So they pick up the throttle. They're at full throttle along this start and finish straight. And the car's as close as they were a lap ago. And where is Duncan Tappy? I can tell you that Duncan has taken another second out of this group, as Sean Balfe and Peter Shotthorst last time round set an identical lap time to the nearest 1,000th of a second. This is absolutely brilliant racing. That's what the International GTOpen is all about as well. Very clean and close multi-mark racing. So to run you down the classification with just over a quarter of the race to go, Gustavo Jackermann leads, Thomas Biaggi is second, third is Alex West, there's West in the silver and black McLaren, fourth is Sean Balfe in the battle that we've been following, fifth Peter Schotthorst in the Vodafone BMW, sixth is Sally Ulick, seventh Mario Plasciuta, eighth is Duncan Tappy, and any one of those 8 cars could, or any 3 of those 8 cars rather, could end up on the podium. In 9th place, Felipe Barrieroth leads the GTAM class, but is being caught hand over fist by Miguel Sardinia, and 48 seconds off the lead, but scything that time away is Andrea Caldarelli. Gustavo Jackermann, the race leader, heads into his 30th lap. This would be his first win in the International GTOpen. And again, it would be a very important result for Gustavo Jackermann and Fernando Moignet with regards to the championship, although they'd only take 4 points out of Biaggi and Crestani. They would close ground on some of their other rivals. Turning uphill once more. Another lap started, another lap of incredibly close competition between the McLaren, the BMW and the Aston Martin. Duncan Tappy didn't gain quite as much ground on that last occasion, mainly because of an elevation of the pace from Sean Balfe, without having to defend quite as aggressively from Peter Schotthorst. There you get a sense of some of the physical forces at play in the McLaren, the BMW and the Aston Martin as they run through that first turn. Driver's getting a good old buffeting in the car. Alpha Motorsport team watching the pictures. Here is the second place man, the championship leader, Thomas Biaggi. And he and Fabrizio Crestani again have played the odds wonderfully this weekend. And is looking promising for another trip to the podium for them. Just that one win coming in race 2 in Paul Ricard, but more often than not they seem to find a way to salvage an excellent result from each and every race. Now, the fight for third isn't too far away from kicking off, because as Sean Balfe and Peter Schotthorst have agreed a temporary ceasefire, it means that they're able to lap about 0.8 of a second quicker than Alex West, and they're about to close up onto the Garage 59 McLaren. We've got somebody who has got a 5-second time penalty for not respecting the track limits. Haven't got a number for you yet on that. Car 7 it is, that's Andrea Caldarelli. Don't think he's going to be overwhelmingly concerned about that, but he certainly had a lot of fun at the wheel of the SF Racing Ferrari. So now the fight for third, possibly about to crackle into life, because Balfe has withstood the best efforts of Peter Schotthorst. His advantage over the Dutchman was half a second at the start of the lap. It looks like it's a little bit more of it mid-lap. Indeed, he gained 0.2 seconds through sector 1. Now Sean Balfe closing up onto Alex West. West, as we said, in pursuit of a podium. It's been a while since we've seen him on the rostrum. And Swedish driver partnering with Alvaro Prent this weekend. Looking to be the foremost of the McLarens in the race. The gap from Alex West to Duncan Tappy, I should tell you, is only about 7 seconds now. So Tappy, all the while that this is going on, is continuing his efforts to close up to the group, and particularly if we start to see a bit of a scrap with West, because Duncan comes past the commentary box now and offered a 1 minute 29.3, so 0.9 second quicker than Alex West. But Duncan Tappy first of all has got to find a way past Mario Plasciuta and indeed Sally Ulick. Front of field, Jackermann leads by 10 seconds. Biaggi 6.5 seconds up the road ahead of it. Here is Gustavo Jackermann. We've not seen an awful lot of the Colombian, but he's been in a great mood this weekend, very relaxed, really enjoying the way that the car's been working, and again the chance to get in a lot of mileage over some with some testing, really understanding now what the BMW can do and how to get the best out of it is delivering some fine rewards for the Teo Martin Motorsport squad. And the Red Bull Ring really seeming to suit the characteristics of the BMW. Of course, next time out in Monza will be a different, I'm sure, a very different complexion to the way that the meeting is going to unfold. Fabrizio Cristani on the orange one, Team Lazarus pit wall, watches his car in the hands of Thomas Biaggi flash through 10 seconds back from Gustavo Jackermann. And this is potentially a very significant result for the championship. And then we've got the fight for third. Here it comes then, Alex West from Sean Balfe and Peter Schotthorst. And Peter Schotthorst has decided that if anybody's going to have a run at Alex West, he would like it to be him first and foremost. So he once more gets into aggressive mode, chasing Sean Balfe. Balfe in turn in pursuit of the 88 McLaren of Alex West. And Balfe just thought about covering the inside line as they came up towards Remus. We've got 10 minutes left on the clock. We've got time for probably another 5 or 6 laps, depending on where the clock falls relative to Jackermann's track position. And now the fight for third. They're equidistant between each other. Alex West has been caught by Sean Balfe. Balfe has got Peter Schotthorst with him. They've just eased a couple of seconds clear of Sally Yuluk. And then behind Yuluk, Mario Plasciuta has been caught by Duncan Tappy. Tappy might well find a way past the Mercedes over the course of this lap, but we are focusing on the fight for third, and rightly so. And this is going to be particularly tricky for Sean Balfe because the two McLarens are very similar in the preparation and setup. Of course, that the cars have got, well, they know exactly the relative strengths of the McLaren, Alex West and Sean Balfe, whereas the BMW of Peter Schotthorst might just be able to spring a little bit more of a surprise. Sean Balfe fractionally closer to Alex West. And West, that last lap, a 1 minute 30.1, 1 minute 29.8 for Sean Balfe. Sally Yuluk in 6th. Duncan Tappy has passed Mario Plasciuta. He goes 7th and is now 6 seconds adrift of this fight. But for Sean Balfe, this has not been an easy capture of Alex West, and West in pursuit of the podium. He's not going to make this easy here for Sean Balfe whatsoever, and if he can just keep them at bay for a couple of laps, then it's going to allow quite the queue to form behind him, and that could well play into his hands as Sean Balfe has to start consulting his mirrors a little bit more. West and Balfe, who enjoyed a really fantastic race yesterday, and Alex West has been on great form this weekend. He was somewhat unlucky in yesterday's race. A tiny mistake going into Rindt saw him losing 3 positions, and it was really a case of the punishment not quite fitting the crime. But he'll have learned from that, and he's now going to be, I'm sure, aspiring to be metronomically consistent with just 8 minutes to go. Jackermann leads, Biaggi second. This fight for third continues to seesaw as suddenly Sean Balfe loses a little bit of ground to West. It means that Peter Schotthorst can see the McLaren getting closer to him. He looks to join in. They can see the countdown clock, 7 3/4 minutes. And Sally Yuluk quicker again than this trio in front of him. And Duncan Tappy quicker still. So we have got just 5 seconds now covering this 5-car fight for third position. And they're all going to start to gang up on Alex West. We've got a yellow flag over at Rindt. Can't tell you who's gone off. I think it's Mario Plasciuta. No, Plasciuta's come through. Got one car that has had a little bit of moment. I think it's Miguel Sardinia, in fact, in the Mercedes, but that car is now back up and running. Andrea Caldarelli, by the way, has raced up into 8th position. He's 18 seconds back from this group. He's not going to close that down between now and the flag, but he remains he's almost 2 seconds a lap quicker than this fight. But for a few more laps, Caldarelli would be part of it. Oh, just running a little bit wide there, Sean Balfe. That is a problem for Mario Plasciuta. Plasciuta is going to rejoin as he looks to ease onto the track. She does now, and Balf's behind Peter Schotthorst. We just saw the mistake going through Worth from Sean Balfe. He just was a fraction offline, and it means that Schotthorst has been able to make the move as they went into Rint, and finally the pressure pays. Peter Schotthorst makes the move. That's important as well, with an eye on the championship battle, because as things stand, it's 2 more points for Miguel Ramos to build his buffer over Sean Balfe. If Schotthorst can find a way past Alex West, that's going to be another 4 points for Ramos. Here's a look at the move, and we just saw Balfe running slightly wide. There was nothing he could do to defend from Schotthorst. And frustrating, having done a great defensive job for the best part of 15 minutes, but it's not done and dusted just yet, because Schotthorst still got to find a way past Alex West, and now the boot is on the other foot. Schotthorst, he needs to attack, but he could also be forced into defending just a little bit as well. Caldarelli, as you see, has just set another fastest lap of the race, a 1:28.0. Gustavo Ackermann still the race leader from Thomas Biaggi. This is the fight for third. Alex West, redoubtable in his defence from Peter Schotthorst, but Schotthorst, well, he got the run on Balfe a lap ago, coming out of Worth on towards Rint, but he can't quite do it this time around, and Alex West gets a lap closer to the checkered flag. There's just 5 minutes left on the clock. He's probably going to have 4 laps to do. We've got another car in trouble up at turn 3, and that is Mario Plasciuta. Around he goes. Hopefully he's not lost the engine on that. No, he hasn't. Meanwhile, West from Schotthorst, then Balfe, Sally Yullock joining in. Duncan Tappy closing up onto them. Tappy now just 2 seconds adrift from this fight as well. So with the Garage 59 McLarens bookending it, they might be able to indulge in a little bit of coordination here. It all depends on whether or not West can keep Schotthorst behind him. Schotthorst just struggling a little bit with understeer going through Remus. It gives Sean Balfe the chance to come back at him now as they head down the hill, and Peter Schotthorst knows it. He moves across. He covers the inside line very, very early, and Sean Balfe is all over the tail of Peter Schotthorst once more. But it's through the 2 left-handers at Pirelli and Worth where we have seen the BMWs been very good this weekend. Schotthorst just finesses the BMW through. It's into Worth where West knows that he just needs to get the absolutely pinpoint accurate exit. So we have a look at Thomas Biaggi pouncing on the suspension in pursuit of second place. Into the pit lane comes Mario Plasciuta. I think he decides that maybe enough is enough. Possibly something's gone a little bit wrong with the car that prompted those spins. Now West is going to have to get his elbows out here, because Peter Schotthorst has a good run uphill towards turn 1. But Schotthorst thinks better of the move. Just feinted the inside, but he forces the mistake from Alex West. West rejoins though, and is going to hold on to that position as they climb uphill. But this is where the BMW might be able to take advantage. He's ever closer to Alex West. Which side is Schotthorst going to go? He looks to the outside, he commits early, then tries to sell the dummy back to the inside of Alex West. Peter Schotthorst brakes very, very late, but runs a little bit wide. West should reclaim the position here, and Sean Balfe might get past as well. Brilliant racing for third place in the closing stages here in the Red Bull Ring, and Schotthorst, he rolled the dice, he loses out, and now Sean Balfe has got a shot at third position as Schotthorst tries around the outside to reclaim fourth. As Balfe attacked, he now has to defend. Schotthorst runs wide, he kicks up the gravel. That might bring Sally Yullock into the mix too, as they come swooping down into Pirelli. Then towards Worth, we've got these 5 cars fighting for third. Absolutely brilliant competition, and such frustration for Schotthorst. It's great defensive driving from Alex West. He saw exactly what Peter Schotthorst was going to do, but Sean Balfe again just slightly offline coming through Worth, but this time he knows, cover the inside line for Rint. There's nothing that Schotthorst can do. He then feints back, and Schotthorst sells him the dummy. Dives through, but slithers sideways. Balfe looks to fight back. He reclaims fourth. They've swapped places several times on this lap already, and Sally Yullock joins the party too. And it's Yullock in the Aston Martin who is going to win the drag race here with the BMW as they sprint towards turn 1 to start the penultimate lap of the race, almost or the anti-penultimate lap of the race, and Shotthorst runs wide again through turn 1, and Duncan Tappy joins the mix, and Tappy's past Shotthorst. He looks to challenge Sally Yullock as they climb uphill. This is the 39th lap of the race, and suddenly it's like a Formula Ford race here at the Red Bull Ring. Tappy is going to move through. He gains the position and goes 5th. So Tappy into 5th. It's now the 3 McLarens fighting for the podium, clear of the Aston Martin and the BMW. And there is still time for this to all change. There is less than a lap time left in the race, so they will be starting the final lap next time around. Oh, this has been magnificent, as West has got a decent advantage as well over Sean Balfe. This is suddenly looking very good for Alex West in the way that Roldan Rodriguez took advantage of the squabbles behind to win in Paul Ricard back in June. Now Alex West for the podium is going to go into this final lap of the race with about a second's buffer over Sean Balfe. Here is the race leader, Gustavo Jackermann, into the final lap. For he and Fernando Moyet, it will be their first win in the International GT Open. It'll be one that puts them into the championship fight. Second place for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani. Exactly what that team needed to deliver today. More points and another podium. Fight for third. Sean Balfe is closing up onto Alex West. He's within 3/4 of a second. It could be on. Duncan Tappy is there as well. Tappy, the quickest of the quintet. Then Sally Yullock has got to keep the BMW of Peter Shotthorst behind him, as now Sean Balfe closes onto the tail of West as they climb uphill. He's going to think about challenging into Remus. He's not quite close enough. He'll try to force the mistake from West, as Balfe looks to tighten the exit, and Balfe's got a good run here. West just had to hesitate getting onto the throttle, and Sean Balfe might be able to challenge. Which side will West go? He looks to cover the inside line, and he plants the car in the middle of the road. There's nothing that Sean Balfe can do. Will West understeer out wide a little bit as they come downhill out of Rauch? The answer is no, he doesn't, but Duncan Tappy closes as well. Gustavo Jackermann negotiating Rindt for the final time, and it is going to be victory in the 10th race of the International GT Open season for Teo Martin Motorsport, Gustavo Jackermann and Fernando Moyet. What a weekend for the BMW squad. Both of their cars taking a win. Second place for Biaggi and Crestani, and that will help them in the championship. To the right of the orange one, Team Lazarus squad. But what about third? Here we go into the final corner. And West has done it. He's kept Sean Balfe behind him. And Alex West and Alvaro Parent take third position from Sean Balfe and Adam Carroll by 0.3 of a second. 5th goes to Duncan Tappy and Mike Benham. 6th for Sally Yullock and Ewan Hankey, with Peter Shotthorst and Miguel Ramos in 7th. And then Andrea Caldarelli, would you believe it, across the line in 8th. And not too far back from them at all in the SF Racing Ferrari. So fantastic dicing in the closing stages here in Austria. Absolutely wonderful action from the International GT Open. And it is action which has seen Gustavo Jackermann and Fernando Moyet, well, they were confident going into today's race that without the success seconds it could work in their favour. And that is exactly how it's transpired for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani. More to celebrate in terms of their championship push. The GTOpen class has been won by Miguel Sardinia and Manuel da Costa, and that is the result of a late race switch in position from Philippe Barrieroth. So look at the classification then. Jackermann and Moyet taking the win from Biaggi and Crestani, then West and Parent in 3rd, Balfe and Carroll in 4th, Benham and Tappy in 5th, Yullock and Hankey in 6th, from Ramos and Shotthorst down to 7th, Fusong Yang and Andrea Caldarelli in 8th. But what a drive from Andrea Caldarelli to set the fastest lap of the race. Busnelli and Babini in 9th from GTOpen winners da Costa and Sardinia. Philippe Barrieros in to 11th place, Mario Plasciuta, Thomas Jaeger, retirement. So, in terms of the championship then, Crestani and Biaggi now 19 points clear of Sean Balfe, who reclaimed 2nd in the standings, with Moyet and Jackermann and Miguel Ramos tied 23 points off the championship lead. Well, it's going to be quite something when we go to Monza in a couple of weeks' time. We'll be racing at Monza the very first weekend of October. Always a treat to go to the Autodromo di Monza. Start of the autumn as Monje and Jackerman get into celebration onto the roof of the BMW. Delight for the pair of them, beautifully managed race. Biaggi goes to congratulate Cristani and the rest of the Orange One Team Lazarus Lamborghini squad. Alex West, fantastic drive from West to keep the pack behind him. Gustavo Jackerman rehydrating. Thumbs up for the camera, on with the sponsor's cap. And a fantastic result for the Colombian driver. Big smile from Thomas Biaggi. Hot work as well in the cockpit of the Lamborghini. Utterly brilliant racing. As he looks to towel down. Frank congratulated by his former team boss, Teo Martin.
Yeah, nice one, eh?
And
well, you're the one who set it up. No.
Congratulates Alex West as well. That was a really, really good drive from West.
Gustavo Jackerman, Fernando Monje, it's done. First victory of the year, well deserved. How was it, Gustavo?
Yeah, well, first of all, great thanks to all the mechanics at Teo Martin Motorsports. They have done an amazing job all year long. And like you said, well deserved. We've been fighting for this. I think in Spa we had one in the pocket and it just didn't happen for us. And we've been struggling all year since then, just getting in second. And now really happy that we finally got this maiden win. Fernando did a great job in the start, just staying clean and running good times. And it was pretty straightforward for me, just keeping up with the pace and bringing it home.
Fernando, it was a success maybe also built yesterday.
Exactly, yeah. We saw maybe the strategy was very important. We finished in P4. Maybe we were about to fight the second position, but we thought it was better keeping in fourth, taking out the handicap we had, keeping the second set of tires for today. And it really worked. We got the first victory, I think well deserved, as Gustavo said. And yeah, super happy to be here. And just now, just looking forward for the last two races and keeping in that direction.
Good, well done. Podium now, guys.
A look back then at the best of the race, and off the line it was Miguel Ramos who converted pole position and allowed Adam Carroll to jump to the inside of Fernando Monje as they arrived into turn one. After a little bit of squeezing, they all made it through safely, and the leading trio then broke clear of Alvaro Prent, who had Fabrizio Cristani and Ewan Hankey glued to his tail. Post pit stops, and Thomas Biaggi was able to squeeze past West fairly early on, but the real story was then the fantastic fight that was brewing up behind, with Sean Balfe under pressure from Peter Schotthorst and Sally Yullock as they gradually reeled in West. Initially it looked advantage Schotthorst. He moved past Sean Balfe and then took the fight to West. Schotthorst gambled everything into turn two, but understeered out wide. It allowed West to hold on to third. It allowed Sean Balfe to squeeze back past as well. It also brought Duncan Tappy into the mix as Schotthorst just pushed a little bit too hard heading through turn three. And watch for the progress of the orange McLaren as well, of Duncan Tappy, as Sally Yullock and Peter Schotthorst did battle. It gave Tappy the opportunity to challenge as they exited turn one. It set us up beautifully for the close of the race. But at the front of the field, Gustavo Jackerman was utterly dominant post pit stops, and he and Fernando Monje taking a very well-deserved victory, and one that brings them right into the championship fight with 4 races remaining. Second place to Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Cristani, and then a superb and fighting third for Alex West and Alvaro Parent. It's a jubilation for Gustavo Jackermann, Fernando Monje here at the Red Bull Ring. So onto the podium, Parent and West in third. Runners up, Biaggi and Cristani. And race winners, Gustavo Jackermann and Fernando Monje for BMW team Teo Martin, winning both races here at the Red Bull Ring.
The sequence of known to the Sieger teams in all of the winning team at Spanish national anthem.
National anthems to celebrate victory for Gustavo Jackermann and Fernando Monje, as Jesus Pareja, the principal of the GT Sport organisation, presents the trophies to Alex West and Alvaro Parent. The same to Fabrizio Cristani and Thomas Biaggi.
And the trophies for the winning team, Gustavo Jackermann and Fernando Monje.
And then the trophies to Fernando Monje and Gustavo Jackermann. They hoist them aloft in jubilation in Austria. And the Teo Martin Motorsport team a clean sweep of the weekend. We are next racing at Monza on the 1st and 2nd of October. And, well, if it's anything like this weekend's racing, that's going to be unmissable. But until then, it's goodbye from Ben Evans here at the Red Bull Ring.
So dann das zweite Podium, DAM-Podium. Am zweiten Platz, in second place, Felipe Barreros, Francisco Arguelles. Und die Sieger, and the winners here in the AM Trophy.
Class Francisco Guedes and Felipe Barrieros